K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
All right, folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. When I ran my security agency for 12 years, I worked with one of these partners on a daily basis. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you. So make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
The wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to for our own cause. We got a pen and telephone.
All right, folks, this is Rick Robinson. Just a couple minutes past the hour right here in beautiful downtown Oklahoma City. Yeah, there's been a format change. We've been picked up by a lot of terrestrial lately, so they've asked me to make a change. So we'll be back here in just a couple minutes. Just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. We've got a lot to talk about today, so I'll be back with you here in just a couple minutes. Gonna have to pay some bills, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
To get up to like $68,000, my heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. I know you're confused because everything was a little different. We have a lot of terrestrial folks that have been picking us up lately, and the chance of being picked up even more by some of our other affiliates that are also being aired on terrestrial. So we've made a decision to make a format change to the live and the rebroadcast. Now, the podcast that you'll be able to hear through the normal places, for the most part, will sound about like they did before, except for iHeart, because it kind of picks it up automatically. But some of the like Stitcher and some of those places, eventually what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll get rid of the extra opening for just the podcast versions. Because we want to start giving the show more of a feel for terrestrial radio, because we are officially now a part of terrestrial radio, thanks to folks like AM/FM 24/7, High Point Radio out of New Jersey, and fingers crossed, we're hoping within the next couple of weeks to be joining WNJC 1360 out of Philadelphia. So, gearing up for that and positive thinking and positive thoughts, I'm just going to start treating it as if it already were. So that's why you'll notice the opening was a little bit different today. Also, I have been admonished by some folks that are picking us up now terrestrially that I cannot say a few words that are rather commonplace. Since I can't say them, I can't really tell you which one was tripping me up, but I didn't realize it was actually on the list until someone pointed it out to me. If you're curious, you can actually go to Wikipedia, or you can even Google the 7 words you cannot say on television. It's actually kind of the same setup that they have for FCC regulated radio, and now that we actually are part of FCC regulated radio, at least on this show, gonna have to start minding my P's and Q's. And if you missed the hint there, P was the one that tends to get me in trouble, because I say another word for P a lot. But I can't say that word anymore, so now I guess I'm just gonna have to say that I'm ticked off, or that I'm angry, or that I'm mad as hell, because I guess it's okay to say that because it in colloquial terms is considered a place, not a curse word. But anyway, so yeah, I digress. Alright, so again, I already gave a shout out to some, want to mention the rest. We are now being carried Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on SHR Media. I believe it is 11 Eastern in the morning, so that would be 10 Central for those of you in flyover country like myself. And then, of course, we have AM/FM 24/7, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon on their web-based station, as well as 7 low-power affiliates. Sadly, I never can remember to have that list put together before I give them the shout-out. One of these days, I will get to that. And, of course, High Point Radio out of New Jersey, which is another low-power affiliate of ours that covers New Jersey, parts of Philadelphia, and one other place that for the moment I cannot remember. And then, of course, we have the newest affiliate, Leading Edge Radio Network. I believe it runs us at 7 Central in the mornings, Monday through Friday. And then the crowning jewel, of course, K98 Talk, the home station. But my so far, the one that I really, really like being a part of, because they've been around for a long time, and this doesn't take away from any of the other affiliates, but is Red State Talk Radio. You can hear this show every Sunday morning at 5 a.m. Central. Typically, we wind up sending over whichever show performed the best for the week, unless, of course, we have a high-profile interview, and then normally that's one of the ones that goes out to all of the affiliates. Speaking of upcoming interviews, tomorrow we will have a good friend of the program returning with us, Mr. Patrick Fornari, the author of Commoner Sense, The Working Person's Guide to America, who is also a columnist. We will actually have the auspicious time frame of actually being sandwiched live right between the debates. So I think what we're going to wind up doing is probably talking a little bit about the debate that just happened, what we liked, what we didn't like, and then what we expect to happen when the snark NATO, formerly known as Trump, takes the stage. There's been a rumbling that there are a lot of folks that are big power donors in the Republican caucuses that are basically giving people the idea and whispering in their ears that it's time to take Trump out. I've already told you, I'm not sure what I think about the guy. I think he's bombastic. I think he is not well-spoken, which in this case is a plus, because we've had so many, I mean, there's no other way to put it, we've had so many polished turds lately, that this guy basically coming out and saying what he wants to say when he wants to say it, it's refreshing to a lot of people. It annoys a lot of other people, and I think there are, again, lots of folks that are not getting attention thanks to the fact that he's stealing a lot of the spotlight. But if he's really, is he really stealing it, or was it just his to take in the first place? So lots of stuff going on in the news as well. The president has recently stuck his foot in his mouth again. Big surprise. Although I guess in this administration you kind of get to take turns as to whether it was crazy Uncle Joe or the president, who basically takes turns sticking their feet in their mouths. I wonder if they've ever stuck one of... Yeah, never mind. I'm just not even going to go there, because sometimes I have to engage the filter. Okay, but anyway, so there's a nice little clip that I found that disturbs me. But I'm going to play it anyway, because it's my job. This is a recent quote of our recent snippet of the president during a recent conversation with some folks, and we're going to let you hear it. It's only going to run for about a minute and a half.
I recognize that the resorting force may be tempting in the face of the rhetoric and behavior that emanates from parts of Iran. It is offensive. I recognize that resorting to force may be tempting in the face of the rhetoric and behavior that emanates from parts of Iran. It is offensive. It is incendiary. We do take it seriously. But superpowers should not act impulsively in response to taunts or even provocations that can be addressed short of war. Just because Iranian hardliners chant death to America does not mean that that's what all Iranians believe. In fact, it's those hardliners who are most comfortable with the status quo. It's those hardliners chanting death to America who've been most opposed to the deal. They're making common cause with the Republican caucus.
I've been talking to myself for a couple of minutes there. All right, so that was the president, of course, sticking his foot in his mouth as usual, which he's done quite often lately, and usually for very stupid reasons, where he basically decides to compare conservatives, or I don't even know if they deserve to be called conservatives for the most part, but Republicans, to the Iranian folks that are opposed to the deal and the ones that are shouting death to America. So really classy, Mr. President. You know, weren't you supposed to be the guy that was supposed to reach across the aisle? That never really happened, did it? So we have you, again, running your mouth, like you always do, telling people that because they disagree with you, they're automatically extremists. That because they disagree with you, they're as bad as the people that are wanting to chant things like death to America. They're opposed to the deal for very, very valid reasons. And I have a clip that I didn't get around to playing yesterday because it didn't really fit with the time frame of the show that we were going to be talking about, or the content of the show we were talking about with Jared yesterday. But, or was it yet? No, that wasn't yesterday. It was the day before. Sorry, I keep forgetting what day it is. It's been a really long week. But I do have a clip that I would like to let you listen to. Now, we're going to start with Senator Cruz, and then I have some older clips that I want to go ahead and play for you. This is a recent exchange on the Senate floor in regards to the Iran deal.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I ask that your answers be brief because my time is limited. General Soleimani, the head of the Al-Quds forces, has more blood of American service members on his hands than any living terrorist. Under this agreement, the sanctions on General Soleimani are lifted. Now, Secretary Kerry said to the families of those men and women who gave their lives, who were killed by General Soleimani, we should apologize. Secretary Carter, I understand that the Joint Personnel Recovery Agency has a classified list of roughly 500 American soldiers who were murdered by Iranian IEDs. I would ask Secretary Carter, so that we can do what Secretary Kerry suggested, that the Defense Department release that list to every member of this committee, declassify that list, and release it directly to the service members' families who were murdered by General Soleimani.
Well, let me look into that, and I'll get back to you, Senator.
Senator, I never said the word apology. I never mentioned apologize. I said we should thank them for their extraordinary service. I never said a word apologize. Please, don't distort my words.
Secretary Kerry, it is duly noted that you do not apologize to the families of the service members who were murdered by the Iranian military.
Said, Senator.
Do you apologize or not? I don't want to put words in your mouth, so which one is it?
I thank them for their extraordinary service, and I would remind them that the United States of America will never take the sanctions off Qasem and Soleimani.
So, sir, I just want clarity. Do you apologize or not? Because you wanted to clarify that point.
I said we thank them for their service, but we will not take the sanctions off Qasem and Soleimani.
All right, Secretary Moniz, I want to turn to a different question. The single greatest threat to the United States if Iran acquires a nuclear weapon is that of an electromagnetic pulse. A nuclear weapon detonated in the atmosphere over the eastern seaboard that could kill tens of millions of Americans. On July 23rd, in testimony before Congress, you told the United States Senate you hadn't read the congressionally mandated Commission on EMPs and that you didn't know what an EMP was.
That is incorrect. I said I did not know this 2008 report recommendations. I said I was quite familiar with the issue, and we all know about EMPs from airburst nuclear weapons.
Secretary Moniz, so let me read the testimony verbatim so that I don't mischaracterize you. Senator Johnson, let me read what you said.
Please.
Senator Johnson, are you familiar with the EMPs Commission's 2008 report? No, I am not, sir. You're not? Do you know? Do you know what an EMP is? You'll have to explain it to me, please. I find that stunning. This is testimony.
That was about the report. If you read further in the testimony, you will see my explicit statement. Of course I know about the issue. I happen to know something about nuclear weapons. I know about EMPs. I know about various actions.
Do you agree that an EMP detonated by Iran in the atmosphere could kill tens of millions of Americans?
By anyone, obviously, is a very potent weapon.
It could kill tens of millions of Americans? Do you agree with that?
That would depend, obviously, on the specifics of
But do you agree that it could?
It depends upon the specifics. These are highly
Does that mean yes, it could?
I said it is highly variable in its impact.
You're refusing to answer the question. Secretary Carter, is it correct that Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world?
I was asked before, and I believe that's true, yes.
Do you have any doubt whatsoever if in excess of $100 billion goes to Iran that some of that money will go to jihadists who will use it to murder Americans?
I can't say that. I can say that their malign activities about which we're extremely concerned are quite well funded today.
Okay.
And it's
finally,
those
because I just have a second
and
left.
The rest of their conduct that makes it so important that they not also have a nuclear weapon.
Finally, because I just have a second left, Secretary Kerry, you told Senator Lee that this was not a treaty because we don't have diplomatic relations with Iran. I would note that is directly contrary to the testimony you gave yesterday to the House.
No,
when you were asked Why is this not considered a treaty? And I will read your answer verbatim. Well,
Senator,
Congressman, I spent quite a few years. Sir, let me ask the question.
You're not reading my whole answer because
well,
I also
Congressman,
said what I just said.
The senator's time, I apologize, the senator's time has expired, and I promised the witnesses that I would get them out as every member that wanted to was able to ask question. I would.
Yay! So, Senator McRhino saves the senator formerly known as the California Raisin. Not really from California, but that's what his face reminds me of. I know everybody else calls him Lurch, but every time I see his face, the only thing I can think of is bow, 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 bow. See, they can't get onto me if I hum it myself. So yeah, just saying. Well, they can. You know, some of you right now, your ears are starting to bleed. Your eyes are about to explode. They're like, oh my God, he's like singing or something. Somebody stop him. All right. But anyway, so, you know, there's been a lot of folks all over social media that have been all over Ted Cruz for what he just said. I got to say, was it a little harsh? Maybe. Was it kind of brackish? Maybe a little boorish? Possibly even a little dickish? Yes. Was it true? I'll let you be the judge. Because I know that right now we're basically getting our rear ends handed to us when it comes to this Iranian deal. We have the worst negotiation team ever following the advice of the president who, you know, do you remember when Bush 43 was in office and everybody talked about how he was Cheney's little lapdog / meat puppet? You notice how nobody talks about the fact that Obama is basically Valerie Jarrett's toady / lapdog / meat puppet? Crickets. Nobody. You know, she's had his ear for forever. And you find it odd that the White House does things like Ramadan dinners. And the fact that they're trying to push this deal through no matter what. No matter how bad it is for the American people. This is why these debates tomorrow are very, very, very important. They are very important. Everybody keeps talking about how this first debate's really not going to be that big of a deal. That if anything, anybody that's up front's probably going to lose some votes. Snark NATO. Wouldn't mind if he lost a few, just saying. But at the same time, these elections are critical at this point. If we wind up with another Democratic presidency, there may not be much time for this country left. And I know a lot of you have talked to me in email and in person and at conventions that we go to. And you've said, look, I'm tired of pulling the lever for the same people over and over and over again. It's time for a change. I understand that it's time for a change. But I also understand that if we keep dividing our vote the way we consistently, for the last couple of election cycles, have divided our vote, we're never going to be able to affect change. Does it pain me to say this? Yes, because I want the most conservative possible candidate running. I think conservatism works every time it is tried. The simple fact of the matter is it works when it is tried. The problem is we either don't try it or we get some, I don't even know if I can say that, so some Frankenstein version of it, let's say that another way, and it turns out to not be real conservatism because it either morphs into some form of corporatism or it morphs into some form of cronyism. Those are very, very different things, but they start with the same general concept of capitalism and conservatism. But when we go too far to one side of the spectrum or the other, we wind up with this whole thing of all of a sudden everybody's looking out for all the corporate special interests and nobody's looking out for the American people anymore. We've had that going on for how many years? No matter how many times we vote for one side or the other, that's what happens. So yes, do I wish that in a perfect world we could all throw our weight behind somebody that's, you know, well, I was going to say somebody that hasn't really been a politician, but we tried that with Obama. I say we in the royal sense at this point because I had absolutely nothing to do with that man's election. I fought it tooth and nail, and when I realized he was going to win, that was one of the times that I actually really started trying to figure out how we could go about starting to try to make a difference. Because I started seeing the writing on the wall in 2008. I knew where this country was headed, and I knew that if I didn't stand up, and a lot of other folks didn't stand up, that we were going to be in trouble. And that's when these concepts that are all starting to come into fruition now started, was in 2008. It started in many different iterations. I write for papers, I run Facebook pages, and then eventually it just morphed into what you see before you today. A radio show that is now available on internet streams 4 to 5 times a day. It's available on several low-power markets. It's being considered for a high-power market. And I don't say that because of me. I say that because of you. Those of you who tune in every day, who send me the emails, who talk about how I'm saying the things that you've always wanted to say and didn't know how. Or I'm saying the things that you knew needed to be said, but you couldn't do it as well. And that's one of the reasons why I keep having folks on like Patrick, who's going to be with me tomorrow, because he's getting the same resonations with the folks that he's reaching with his books. And that's why I work so hard to cross-promote with people and get involved with other networks that are trying to make a difference. I don't care who gets the message out. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is this nation is dying. If you don't believe me, you look at Planned Parenthood and you tell me that something is seriously not wrong with this country. We have people up in arms over a lion that was killed in a foreign country by an American nationalist being led by local guides. If anybody should be in trouble for all of that crap, it should be the guides. But we're about to crucify a dentist over a lion. But God forbid somebody gets mad over Planned Parenthood, who have basically been donating body parts in exchange for funding. Are you kidding me right now? We have this whole group of people that are up in arms over a lion, but they could give two nothings about the fact that for God knows how long, Planned Parenthood has been making money off of dead babies. You tell me our priorities are not screwed up, and you tell me that there's not something that we have to do to be able to fix that before it's too late. Because I've been saying this now for several years, and I can't take credit for it because the first person I heard it from was Glenn Beck. There will come a time, if we do not get ourselves back where we need to be, that this country will go the direction of Nazi Germany. And when it does, when we go dark, when we stop being the light to the world, and let me tell you right now, we are nearly there. We are no longer respected. We really to the point where we have almost no allies. Even Israel can barely stand to be in the same room with us right now. When we go dark, when it happens, and if you've read the same book I have, at some point it's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that I'm gonna watch it happen and go gently into that night, so to speak. I'm gonna stand. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna rail. I'm gonna try to wake people up because I don't have a choice. But when we go dark, and there will come a time, and I have a feeling, unfortunately now, that time is a lot closer than we realize. And if you look at everything that's going on in the news right now, the racial tensions, the civilian on cop violence, the cop on civilian violence, the mouthing by the administration about all of those things, the fact that we now have comedians that are going into meetings that they were booked for to talk about, Black America and everything else, talking about how nobody needs to teach a black man to respect police officers because why do they need to respect people that murder them? I mean, am I the only one that sees the writing on the wall anymore? Because I'm telling you, I am legitimately terrified for the first time since I've become an adult. And I've been an adult for a while. I mean, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm 42 years old. And I'm telling you, I do not recognize this country anymore. When we have a presidential candidate who is getting all of the attention he's getting because he's basically turned the election cycle into his own reality TV show, and he doesn't even have to pay anybody for it because the media is giving him 24/7 coverage. And we can't even get the fact that Planned Parenthood has possibly been making money off of dead babies for decades. We can't even get that investigated. Oh, but we can sure investigate the people that arranged to bring the videos to light to make sure there wasn't some form of entrapment. At this point, does it really matter if it was entrapment when it's something that is that heinous? It's not like anybody was going to try to file criminal charges against them. We just want to know what it is that they're doing. Why does nobody want to get to the bottom of this? Why does nobody care about the fact that there are unborn children that are aborted every single day, and then their body parts are donated in exchange for either favors or money? I can't even complete that sentence without practicing it a million times. That's why I haven't talked about it this week, because every time I think about even uttering that sentence, my stomach turns. And that is what is happening in this country right now. And a lot of us are fine with it, and that's what terrifies me. You know what? Fine. Maybe I'm old. I have grandkids now, so maybe I should just get in my rocking chair, go sit in the corner, sip on a glass of lemonade or something. But let me tell you this. If everybody thinks that is an acceptable business model, fine. Let them keep the money. But remove their not-for-profit status because they are making a frickin' profit. Remove their funding from the government because they don't need it, because they're making money off of baby body parts. Do you realize how many other clinics there are out there that offer the services that Planned Parenthood does without the grisly extra details? I'll bet you don't. I will bet you don't, but they are out there. All right, well, I guess I have ranted long enough for the first half of the show. We're going to take a quick break, pay some more bills. We will be right back on America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot of show left.
Red Nation Rising brings you Town Hall Radio.
From a single tweet to 3 million a month, our community is a force to be reckoned with on social media.
So don't miss our show, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on K98 Talk.
Our chat room is our co-host, and you ask the question.
Join us and be heard.
So get ready to sound off on Red Nation Rising Radio. No one else is going to do it for you.
There's a wild, wild whisper blowing in the wind, calling out my name like a long lost friend.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
Hi, I'm Steve Long.
And I'm Lily Dane.
Are you tired of hearing the same Republican and Democrat banter from the mainstream media?
Does listening to the likes of Sean Hannity, Ann Coulter, Piers Morgan, and Rachel Maddow make you want to jump off a bridge?
If so, come listen to us on Liberty Unfiltered, Sunday nights at 8 Central, 9 Eastern on K98Talk.com.
Join us as we fight for freedom against the advocates of big government.
Liberty Unfiltered. It's not your daddy's political talk show.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members, of their families or their children, asking them to deploy, patrol, stay on watch, on point, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to bring them all the way home, to keep them secure, to have their backs for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs do whatever it takes to help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Find out how you can help at findwwp.org.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of liberty-conservative conservatism.
Where no one is safe, no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
anyway.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
For our own cause, we got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political correctness will replace the bill.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson, and we are down to about roughly 20 minutes. Wow, where does the hour go? I guess it's because I got all wound up. You know, speaking of Trump, there's been a clip that I have been talking about wanting to play for a couple of days. And I know I had just talked about him right before I went on my little tear. So instead of going back to the tear, let's get the show back on topic. And there's been a clip that I've been wanting to talk about that kind of goes along with some of the stuff that everybody else has been talking about to get us geared up and ready for the debates. And then I have one other clip that I definitely want to play, but I want to hit this one first. Big shout out to the Cashin' In crew over on Fox. At least one of those guys has actually come on to one of the shows that I produce for, and we're in talks to get him onto another one, Mr. Honig. So big shout out to those guys. But there is a little bit of a clip that I want to play in regards to a special they did this last Saturday that featured a lot of the stuff going on with Trump. I'm starting to think that Fox may have changed allegiances because everybody talked about how up front, when everything first started, they were going to be solidly in the Bush camp. It kind of seems like they're swinging over to Trump because they're talking about him a lot. But anyway, I thought this clip was important, so here we go.
Welcome back to this special edition of Cashin' In. You just heard billionaire Donald Trump say he's not beholden to anyone. Is that what the country needs, Michelle?
I do. I think so. Look, I know Democrats keep saying that all Hispanics hate Donald Trump, but I'm Latina and I actually like Donald Trump, and that's the reason why. I like the fact that he is someone who's running for president that isn't a career politician who's trying to climb the political ladder. He's not trying to get money from big donors. He's not going and kissing up to all these rich people asking them for money. I like that. And he's talking about issues like immigration, which is what Americans care about, but the GOP class does not want to talk about. The establishment does not want to talk about that issue, and he's making that an issue, and he's forcing other candidates to talk about something that they don't want to.
Yeah, and Wayne, let's stay on money for a second. Right now, a lot of candidates are in California being wined and dined by some big money donors, and maybe that's part of the problem with the process.
Well, the process has always had that, and it's always going to have that, because money is going to talk. Money is what they have to spend for ads. They have to spend that for when they go on the road. They have to do all of that. And he's fortunate that he doesn't have to, in the sense that he's got his own money and he can talk the way he wants to. But he talks about, as I said, I don't think he talks really about issues so much as it's a question. He's a child of television. It's a style over substance issue, and he's terrific at it. There's no doubt about it. And he doesn't need anybody else's money, so he doesn't have to go and pander to that group.
And, John, and that's an important point that Wayne just made, there are a lot of lobbyists who have a lot of cash to spend for their causes. Would that be a good thing if Donald Trump didn't have to listen to lobbyists?
Well, Eric, he says he doesn't have to, be obligated to people who give him money. I just wish I believed it. I mean, he's been so philosophically and practically inconsistent on so many issues. And I think if he was against really, a patronage in politics, he would come out in favor of a free market, truly. I mean, Donald Trump has talked about trade tariffs. He's been on both sides of many, many issues. So I'd like to believe that he wouldn't be beholden to special interests, but his inconsistencies make me wonder.
Okay, Michelle, what about it, though? He seems to be tapping into a nerve of the American public, if not the American public, certainly the GOP voting public.
Well, look, the American people are sick and tired of these politicians who are always just going around, just regurgitating their talking points. And finally, we have someone who's talking and saying it how it is. And he may not be that eloquent, but he's talking about the issues that we care about. Americans right now are unhappy with the job crisis in America. They're unhappy with unemployment. They're unhappy with all of the violence in our towns that are bordering Mexico. And he's talking about that. And that's why so many Americans are so excited and really round up for Donald Trump.
So let me take it to, let's go with Jonathan here. Politicians know how to spend our money. Now comes along a businessman who knows how to make money. It's a little bit different. Business is not as usual in D.C. if there were a Trump presidency.
Well, but Eric, there's a difference between being a good businessman and being a good presidential leader or being a good leader in general. I mean, Donald Trump, for example, you talked about business, but in the past he's advocated for a massive wealth redistribution. I'd like to believe he was the free market capitalist who wanted a free market in healthcare, but he's talked about not just getting rid of Obamacare, but replacing it. So I agree with you. We need a free market guy in the White House, someone who believes in Americanism. But once again, I just don't think Trump's policies have shown that.
I got 20 seconds, Wayne. Are there any free marketeers that are vying for the GOP nomination?
I think almost all of them are. With him, he may be the exception, but Jonathan's right. He's been on all sides of all subjects so many times.
Very good. We're going to have to leave it right there. Great panel, everybody. By the way, congratulations, Michelle. Top 50. The Hill had her top 50 hottest people in D.C. Congratulations.
Thank
you. All right,
you.
head over to foxnews.com/cashing to see this week's stock picks.
All right, so that's basically the cashing in's crew's perspective on Trump. There's something that I keep seeing, and I haven't been able to verify it yet one way or the other, but it does scare me a little bit if it happens to be true. One of the things that I keep seeing making the rounds on social media was apparently the person that ultimately convinced Donald Trump to run was Bill Clinton. If that's true, that should scare you just a little bit more. All right, so since we are about out of time, I've got one more clip I definitely want to make sure that I play today, and it is a bit of a rundown about the upcoming debates and kind of what to expect, again, from the folks hosting it over at Fox News.
Primary voters, tired of Washington politics, are getting behind the straight-talking businessman's White House run. Here with reaction, we have Democratic strategist Bill Lascinchi and Republican strategist Ron Bonjean. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks so much.
We've seen several controversies with Trump, and yet, Ron, his support in the polls just keeps on going up. Why is that?
Well, that's because I think people are mad as hell at Washington, and Donald Trump is promising to take a wrecking ball to the whole city, practically.
He came in like a wrecking ball. I'm telling you, that should be his theme song.
But I'll tell you, I think once he gets on the stage, he's going to have to do two things. One is explain his views in a little bit more detail, and two, Republicans have the other Republicans on stage have an opportunity to challenge his conservative credentials. He supported Hillary Clinton in 2008. He gave to her foundation. He was previously
and apparently
pro-choice.
convinced to run by Bill Clinton.
Advocated for a number of Democratic policies. He called himself a Democrat once. So I think, conservative primary voters are serious customers if they're watching the debate right now. And they probably want someone who's reliably conservative. So he's going to have a little bit of a challenge, I think.
So only the top 10 Republicans in a combination of the latest polls qualified for tomorrow's primetime debate. The other 7 will be in an earlier debate at 5 p.m. here on Fox News. But Joe, out of those top 10, it's a crowded field.
Why didn't
we
the
saw
arena
a
make the
candidates
cut?
forum earlier this week. One of the most difficult challenges was that each candidate got very little time to speak. How can these candidates distinguish themselves and make an impact? There's only 10, but that's still a lot.
They can't.
I don't actually think they can tonight or tomorrow night. I don't think it's going to be a groundbreaking revelation for any of them to really break through. Logistically, this is a serious problem. 10 candidates, each with set time for opening and closing remarks, and then to field a couple questions. It's going to be all over the place. What the problem that someone like Donald Trump runs into, though, is with these debates, you can only lose votes. You're not going to really gain any votes in this first debate. So when we look at the post-debate spin, and Ron's right, I mean, his credentials are going to come up. The way to get at this debate strategically, if you're one of the other 9, is to get Trump to start losing numbers, not necessarily focus on yourself gaining numbers. And that's an important move strategically that the other 9 candidates will have to play out.
It's interesting, Ron, because I've read that some of these candidates are going to employ the opposite strategy, that they're expecting Trump to maybe go out for personal attacks, and that instead of taking him on, they're just going to talk about their own ideas and their own credentials. Is that the right strategy, or should they hit back?
Well, it makes sense for other top-tier candidates like Jeb Bush and Scott Walker, maybe a Marco Rubio, to not attack Trump and to actually act presidential, because there are others who are way down there, like a Mike Huckabee or a Ben Carson or even John Kasich, who need to get more attention. And to do that, attacking Trump may be the way to go, because it would stripping some paint off him could be helpful while also bolstering their conservative credentials. So that would be a good strategy, I think, of their part.
Yeah, we're showing video right now of Ohio Governor John Kasich. He made the cut, as did Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey. Joe, any chance of some of these folks, that just barely squeaked into this primetime debate, really coming on?
Well, yeah, and I think it was a big boon for both of them to be on this table and not at the so-called kids table, right? The other debate. And since they're up there, they will immediately be seen as one of the top 10 contenders. That comes with just standing on that stage and the polls that back it up. And then coming out of the debate is when they will start making their moves. I think that Ron brought up a good point when we were talking about what the strategy might be, but there is a very presidential play here, which is this debate is not going to win the campaign. The debate goal for these guys is to make it to that last debate that only has 4 candidates on the stage. And when you get to that point, that's when you can go on the offensive. Right now, for the 10 that are up there, looking presidential and looking credible is extremely important for them, because that's what voters in Iowa and New Hampshire want to see when we start breaking this down. Because by the time we get through New Hampshire, this field will be cut in half, because money will dry up, support will dry up, and they will eventually whittle it down.
All right, we will see what happens Thursday night, primetime, right here on Fox News. Joe Listingy.
All right, so, just to kind of give you a little bit of a rundown on what the talking heads are expecting, what do I expect? Donald Trump to run around like the Tasmanian devil, knocking about 9 other people off the stage, just so he can draw more attention to himself, while the hair flies everywhere. Which is the reason why I've nicknamed him the Snarknado, because I swear, anytime he gets onto a stage, it's like watching the Tasmanian devil just spin around and reel and see how much crap he can knock into and tear up. Which is entertaining, don't get me wrong. I like watching Trump. I enjoy it because, it's like I said, he might as well make Wrecking Ball his campaign song, because anytime he comes in basically just like a wrecking ball. He knocks everybody out of the way, steals all the spotlight. But again, very important things to notice there. 2008, he supported Hillary. Rumor has it through social media that he was convinced to run by Bill Clinton. Now, again, that's only a rumor. I have not been able to confirm it, but I am working on it. Don't know if we're ever going to find out. But I'm telling you, it's pretty obvious that he's, to me, going to just see how big of a mess he can make out of things. And I think the same thing that happened in 2012 is going to wind up happening again. He's going to get to the point where he's got enough attention, got everybody paying attention to him, and he's going to say, oh, yep, sorry, just kidding. But hey, I just opened this new business over here, so why don't you guys go check that out? Or, tinfoil hat moment, I think if he stays in long enough to continue to draw attention, at some point he will lose his focus, but he will have enough people's attention that he will become the Ross Perot of 2016 and will inevitably ensure that whoever the Democratic nominee is wins the presidency, which I think is the real reason why, if it is true, that Clinton talked him into running. Because let's not forget, in 2008, he supported Hillary. I mean, I know lots of stuff has happened since 2008. She was made Secretary of State. She did a terrible, terrible job as Secretary of State. But when you owe the Clintons a favor, even if you're Donald Trump, and I'm sure if he was supporting Hillary in 2008, it probably had something to do with a favor that he owed them, you don't walk away from a favor that you owe the Clintons. This is why they're so mad at Obama right now. Because, if you remember, in 2008, when Hillary knew that he was going to be the guy, there was no way around stopping him being the guy, she came to him and she said, Obama, what we'll do is we'll have Bill campaign for you now, because we already know we're done, but we want to make sure that you get it. So let's do this. Let's have Bill campaign for you now. And then when the time comes, whether it's 2012 or 2016, you campaign for us. Because does anybody else remember when Obama said he was only going to be a one-term president if his numbers sucked? I think that was a bit of a nod to the fact that if things were bad enough, he was actually going to go ahead and try to see if there was any way to get Hillary to run. I know it hadn't been done before, and I know it probably wouldn't have happened, but I think that was honestly kind of what they were looking for. And then he was even shopping for a home in Hawaii, and then all of a sudden, something changed. And I don't know what it was, because if you were watching the same debate I was watching in 2012, that very first one, Obama thought he was done. He didn't even know why he was standing on the stage. And then all of a sudden, Romney's camp let off the gas. Say what you want, but this whole tinfoil hat thing about there being other people that are honestly running things, as things continue to speed up and they don't hide things as well anymore and they just kind of go straight from one side to the other doing the same thing as the other one. Because if you remember, back even 10, 15 years ago, what would happen is one side would get the ball for a while. They would run with it as far as they could go. People would realize they were up to some shady crap. So they would... I think that's one of the okay words. If not, I will edit it later. Because it's not actually on terrestrial right now. I don't think that's one of the words I can't say. Okay, sorry. I'm having to learn about this whole being regulated thing. It's kind of scary. Okay, so anyway. So we let one side run with the ball for a while. We realize that they're doing some shady stuff. So we vote for the other side. The other side used to kind of put things back to kind of the way we wanted it for a while. Because, they're like, hey, they voted for us. We should at least let them think we're going to do some of the stuff they want us to do. And then a couple of years down the road, that side started doing the same shady stuff the other side was doing. Now they just don't even hide it anymore. Case in point, we elected all of these conservatives. Yes, those were those nasty little air quotes again, in case you can't see them because it's radio. But we elected all these quote-unquote conservatives who said, vote for me and we'll defund Obamacare. Vote for me and we'll fix the budget. Vote for me and we'll do this. Vote for me and we'll do that. Vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. Come on, you stupid conservatives. You know you want to vote for me. And then we voted for them, and absolutely positively nothing changed, and in a lot of ways things got worse, because we just handed the president more power than any president ever needs, especially this egomaniacal douchebag. That is one of the words I can still say. So yes, I will be reveling in the fact that I can say douchebag and nobody can get mad at me for it. Except for my dad. He gets on to me all the time because I use foul language on the radio. That's an interesting conversation, but we'll save that for another show. But what am I looking for tomorrow? Somebody to actually tell me how they plan to fix the mess. I don't care if it comes from the kids table or the adult table. Yeah, that's what I'm calling the two different debates at this point. We have the kids table, which I think there are a couple of folks that really should be at the adult table, and Trump should probably be back at the kids table. But then he just wind up playing with his hair, and yeah, it would be bad. But, so what am I looking forward to again, or what am I looking for? Someone to actually tell me how they plan to fix the mess. Because this country isn't a mess. It's broken. It's got to be fixed. And nobody seems to want to talk about how they're going to do that. So what are we going to have for you tomorrow night? Well, let me tell you what we're going to have for you tomorrow night. Patrick Fernari, author of Commoner Sense, A Working Person's Guide to America, will be back with me tomorrow. And we happen to be lucky enough to be sandwiched between the two debate time frames, actually coming on just as the first one ends. So what I'm hoping to do is go over a couple of his recent articles, because, he is a writer and I want to help promote his stuff. We will hopefully talk about some of the kids' table results, who we thought stood out, maybe some predictions about the adult table, and just kind of see where it goes from there. But anyway, at this point, I am going to have to wind some stuff down because we got to make room for G Nation coming on with us here in just a couple minutes right here on K98 Talk with the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show. Yours truly will be taking a back seat and become the button pusher while we give G center stage, and he'll be with you right here in just a couple minutes. Now, don't forget, tomorrow... Whoop, I loaded the wrong thing. Hang on a second. All right, folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends.
Yay for oopses. That's what I'm looking for. All right. So, anyway. All right, that's going to do it for this particular episode of America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Stay tuned. Just after this show concludes, we will have the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show. And then right after that, we have According to Me with Jason DeWilkins. Back-to-back-to-back talk radio right here every Wednesday night on K98Talk.com. Don't go anywhere.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later. Game over, man. It's game over.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.